Yeah, so that money went to another state. Some other state got that money, and now we don't have any money. We're borrowing from the federal government, and they're like, "Oh, why don't we have any money?" Well, because you didn't take it. The feds are handing down money, and these guys are saying, "No thanks, no thanks, no thanks." Which I would think that when you're in the desert and someone hands you a canteen of water, you would take the water. That's just my thought. Yes.
I've been trying to find out these photographic tickets that they get in Phoenix.
Photo radar.
Photo radar.
I get my fair share.
Everybody I know does when they go to Phoenix, and I'm wondering, I've been trying to find out what they do with all that money.
Well, most people don't actually pay the tickets. Yeah, they don't pay the tickets. It was estimated to bring in about $90 million of revenue to the state fund.
I'm sorry, what?
It was originally estimated to bring in about $90 million per year to the state fund. It has generated $32 million in 1 year. So a lot of people just don't pay the tickets.
How do they get by without paying?
Well, there's lots of reasons. I'm not a fan of photo radar because I believe it violates your constitutional right to confront your accuser. And also, how are you going to argue about the machine? What if the machine was wrong? There's no way to cross-examine the witness. Dear Box, were you wrong?
When I didn't pay my photo radar ticket, I got a letter after I refused for a few months. I got a letter from a judge in Surprise. That said if I didn't pay the ticket, I would have to pay for the process server that came up to serve me, and then pay the ticket.
That's true.
So I should have ignored that one too?
No, I mean, if the process server came, you would have been billed for it.
Okay.
You could go live somewhere else, though. Well, a lot of them, they just don't. A lot of tickets, when someone doesn't respond, if they don't have a great photo, if they don't have a great case, and they just kind of let it go.
That was a good photo.
Well, then, there you go.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've actually paid them, so I'm, law-abiding citizen. Anyway, the one question I have of you is that I understand where you're coming from as far as not wanting to take part in a fighting match with the Republicans, but do you think it might be worthwhile? You were talking about, closing all these loopholes, of actually putting that forward as a proposal?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
We did. We did that several times last year, and it's available for you to read at strongerarizona.com if you'd like. We also did 22 public forums across the state last year during the legislative session, teaching people about that proposal. So it's out there. So when the speaker says, well, the Democrats haven't put anything out there, I'm like, well, maybe you don't know how to use the internet. But it's out there. The internets are real.
Has there been any response at all?
No, because, see, the mistake that often is made is to believe that this is real, right? But the comments that they're making are not actually designed to get real input, right? This is theater. It's designed to provide a distraction from the fact that they have been in control for 40 years and have not been able to balance our state budget for 16 months. And they want to blame Democrats for the problems that we're in right now, which is interesting because they've been in control for 40 years. 40 years in the legislature. Like, I mean, 40 years, right?
But it was all Janet Napolitano's fault, wasn't it?
No, because, and here's why, quite simply, the legislature was controlled by Republicans, and is, and has been for 40 years. So the thing about the governor is that the governor gets to sign bills. She doesn't actually get to vote for them herself, like it's not her job. And so you have to have a legislature that votes for the ideas. So people got on the Janet bandwagon. So it was their plans, So yeah, that's a spurious argument. It's a spurious argument. It has no weight whatsoever. Yes?
On the internet. In other words, do some PR work here, constructive PR, however you want to label it, but actually get this out to the people in the state.
Our budget?
No, these comments that you can make.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we do, and let me just say, I actually think the House Democrats do an awesome job at media, considering we have one staffer. She's awesome, but we have one staffer. We do a weekly press conference. We are the only legislative caucus in the state that does a weekly press conference, 1 hour every Monday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. We also do press releases throughout the week, and we give coordinated speeches on the floor of the House around these issues on a regular basis. We also have a website, strongerarizona.com, and we have a Facebook group called AZ House Democrats. So and I'm on the radio and television every day or so, right? So I think that we do a pretty good job. The difficulty about getting saturation across the state is that we don't control the media. And so we don't get to choose what parts of what we're saying get clipped and put on NPR. We don't get to choose what part they talk about on KTR radio, which is talk radio in Phoenix. We don't choose what part they show on television. And so I guess I would say, yeah, I think we do a really great job. And do we get all the coverage that we want? No. But do we try all the time? Yeah, I do believe that.
What do you think of Howard Fisher?
Howie knows his stuff. He's a smart guy. He's an equal opportunity offender. Yes.
I attended the Arizona Town Hall this year, and the subject was riding the Arizona revenue roller coaster.
Right. They liked our proposal.
Yeah. Have you read the summary?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, I took it around to the House and said, look, they like our proposal. They like our proposal.
Yeah. Actually, and I thank you for your discussion of the revenue issues that you brought up, which were exactly the ones, many of the ones we talked about. However, there is one that I think we may have a difference on, and that is on that 1% sales tax. One of the things, and as for those that may not know, this Arizona Town Hall is, we had roughly 110, 120 people from all over the state, all parties, all walks of life. So there was no uniformity amongst us. However, there was an absolute consensus of the entire group that among other things, I mean, this, like you pointed out, it's only 800 million. We have $3 billion
plus
deficit coming. So a lot of other things have to happen. But we were consensus, almost unanimous, in believing that the 1% sales tax, among other things, ought to be part of the revenue stream.
Well, I didn't say it shouldn't be.
Okay, now, but here's the real response I'd like to hear from you. And that is, why when we elect legislators, do they want to turn around and dump the decision back to us rather than having, I mean, that's your job. That's what we elected you to do, is to make these tough decisions. Because I agree with you, if that gets thrown back to the public, it isn't going to pass anyhow, and we don't have time to waste for that.
So House Democrats have always believed that a 40-20 solution is the right way to go. And let me explain what that means. The voters passed an initiative a number of years ago that says if the legislature wants to raise taxes, they have to have a 2/3 majority in the chamber to do so. California also has that same rule, which is why they're also, we are just as bad as them. The good news is the New York Times doesn't pay as much attention to us. Yay. So we are one of only 3 states in the country that has this requirement, which means that the bar to pass any kind of revenue increase is incredibly high. You can't get 40 and 20 for anything in the legislature these days. But we believe, as House Democrats, that 40 and 20 is the right way to do it, because we have one constitutional duty, and that's to balance the budget. That's our one constitutional duty. The bills are nice. It's good that we pass bills. I'm glad we do it. I'm proud of it. But we have one constitutional duty. It's pass the budget. And when you put an issue on the ballot to the voters, you're punting. You're saying, I don't want to take responsibility for this. Will you please do it for me? So why is that happening?
Bad stuff happen.
Well, I'll tell you why it's happening, and this is why we've opposed it. We've always said that while we're not crazy about a 1-cent sales tax increase because it increased the volatility, if we're going to do it, we need to have some protections in place to make sure it goes to the right things and not to tax cuts, so it actually goes to kids and schools. And we've also said it should happen in the legislature and not at the whim of the voters, especially during a special election when no one goes to vote. And the reason that that hasn't happened is quite simple. Well over half of the legislature have signed pledges to not raise any taxes or fees. And Grover Norquist is in charge. You guys know him? I want to shrink the government to the size.